Are Google's recommendations there to help you or just to drain your budget? In today's video, we'll walk you through how Google Ads recommendations work and what to watch out for just to make sure that you make the most out of your budget inside your campaign. So, what Google Ads recommendations are the recommendations that they obviously want you to make, and you can find them for any campaign by going to recommendations under the overview or dashboard part of your account. Now, the first thing you will see here when you get to the recommendations tab is an optimization score. And firstly, just to mention, what the optimization score is, it's just a score that's given to you as a percentage by Google, and it's only based on how many of their recommendations that you've actually decided to follow. And all you would need to do to increase your optimization score is just allow or apply each of the recommendations that they give. Now, the issue with this is that, you could apply all of these recommendations and get your optimization score to 100% and assume that your account is in good standing. But the issue is that a lot of the recommendations they give aren't necessarily going to help you make the most out of your budget inside Google Ads. So what I would say about optimization score is that it does not matter and is not an indication as to how your campaign is actually performing. What I'd be a lot more concerned about is your conversion rate, the amount of conversions you've received, and your overall maybe cost per conversion, for example. These metrics right here are a much better indication as to how your campaign is performing and not your actual optimization score. Because we could add 8% here, as you can see, to our optimization score by adding more broad match keywords to this campaign. The issue with this, and by adding more broad match keywords to our campaign, is that we would allow Google to show our ads for a lot more irrelevant searches that we don't want to appear for. And that means we're going to likely get a lot more clicks from irrelevant searches that aren't relevant to what we offer. That means getting us a lower conversion rate, higher cost per lead, and less conversions overall that could have been gotten from more relevant search terms, which is how we have our campaign set up right now. So adding in broad match keywords is probably one of the most common recommendations that you'll be given by Google. And yesterday's video would have went into more detail, on broad match keywords and how eventually you can get to a point where they might be worth adding in, but you're going to get recommended by Google to add them in from the very beginning. And, we'd never recommend adding broad match keywords to a campaign that doesn't have a lot of conversion data. So it's just important to be careful of the recommendations that you get from Google. And if you have a plan going into your campaign, that you want to stick with that plan and not accept recommendations that you're given far too early for the state that your campaign's in right now. And another recommendation that's really important to be aware of as well is regarding your bidding strategy. So in this campaign, for example, it's not an issue because we're already running with maximize conversions. But if you're using maximize clicks, for example, you're going to get recommended very early on to switch over to maximize conversions. And the issue with that is that you need enough relevant conversion data for maximize conversions to actually work really well. And we wouldn't recommend switching over until you have at least your first 20 to 30 conversions. And the issue is that Google's going to recommend for you to switch over to maximize conversions more or less straight away. And a lot of people will just accept this recommendation because it's what Google recommended, but it never ends up, being the best decision for their campaign because their campaign didn't have enough conversion data to actually make the most out of maximize conversions yet. So adding in broad match keywords, changing your bidding strategy too early, increasing your budget is another common one. And in some cases, depending on your current situation, it might make sense to increase your budget, but only if you're happy with the results you're currently getting, because simply throwing more money at Google Ads isn't going to solve the issue. And if you're running a campaign, for example, maybe you just want to keep getting the same amount of leads that you're getting. Maybe you don't want to just keep increasing your budget if you're, a small company that can only handle so many leads. If you're already happy with the current amount of leads you're getting, then you don't need to increase your budget if it's a recommendation that Google is giving you. It's just an idea that Google's given you, and that's all it should be seen as. Same as well with adding more keywords to your campaign as well. So you might get a recommendation to, as you can see down here, to add new keywords to the campaign, and you'll increase your optimization score by doing this. But I can just see here, for example, that they're asking us to add in keywords, for example, commercial roofing, which isn't being offered as a service to this campaign. And a lot of the keywords that they'll recommend that you add to the campaign are often irrelevant to the services that you offer. So you don't want to add in these keywords yourself because, you should have done your own keyword research at the beginning, and you don't want to add in these suggestions that Google are giving you to do. So those are the most common recommendations that Google will give you to make. And what you want to do is go through the recommendations that Google gives you, and most of these should just be ignored for the most part. For example, we don't want to add Google search partners because it just leads to bad quality traffic overall. So that's just another example of a recommendation that we don't want to follow. And you can see a trend here as well, is that most of these recommendations seem designed so that you spend more budget, whereas us as, advertisers trying to make the most out of our budget, we're trying to protect the budget that we have and make sure that it's spent as efficiently as possible. Whereas a lot of these features inside Google Ads are just designed to make us spend more budget, but it's up to us to make sure that we don't implement these strategies that aren't actually best for our specific scenarios. So it's just important to go through these and not, apply all of the recommendations that you're given. But one last point that's worth mentioning as well, if you go back to all campaigns and you can stay inside recommendations, what you want to do here is go to auto apply. And what you just want to do is make sure that you do not have these auto apply recommendations selected. Because as you can see here, for example, if you had all of these auto applied, that Google can basically decide your bidding strategy for you, add new keywords, change your keywords to broad match, make new ads on your behalf, and basically just take complete control over your account. So it's just important as well to make sure that you've checked to not have your auto apply recommendations turned on. Now, I hope this video just gave you a bit more insight on how recommendations work inside Google Ads. And not to say that, every recommendation that Google gives is bad and should always be ignored. It's always worth going through the recommendations to see what they're suggesting, because in some cases, it might be worth adding something to your campaign that actually might help improve your performance. But it's up to us to decide, based on our own strategies and plans for the account, which recommendations are actually worth taking on. But if you do have any specific questions about recommendations or any other aspects of Google Ads, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you are a service-based company as well looking for further help refining your own campaigns, feel free to have a look at the link in the description down below. And if you do like this Google Ads related content as well, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as we'll be posting all things related to Google Ads here daily. And hopefully we'll see you in the next video.